This happened. This young man, LaRae Seamster, and I was in the building when LaRae Seamster was killed. People in our building in the fellowship hall heard the 5 shots. My assistant saw him walking from the clinic down the sidewalk as she was leaving work to head on out. She turned right out of the parking lot onto Fargo Street, and by the time she turned right, she looked left and saw him laying in the street. She had no idea what had happened. We who had come out to see had not, when someone came and asked me, and I was in the middle of a meeting, we all went out to see. We didn't even realize it was LaRae, who is a member of our church. But what we do know is this, and I went from there, as Marcy said, over to the hospital and was with Mom, Erica, and Sammy, his stepfather, who has been a real great stepfather to his life, when they got the news that he had actually died. And it was, as Marcy and Antoinette and others who were on the scene, it was a very, very, very difficult time. And for the next hour and a half, I'm thinking, what we were doing was really ministering, trying to do our best to help Mom and Dad and family members deal with that. Many of you have been there, so again, I'm not trying to act like I know so much. You've been there before, I've been there before. These are not easy times. What really came to me as I talked with Marcy and with Antoinette is that we must, as a community, continue. Let me first say, I respect and appreciate every effort that's being made to reduce gang violence in our city. I want to say that because there's some great people doing great stuff. I don't know all of them, but it doesn't even matter. I know that there's great things going on. And I recognize that if the story could be told, everybody has a story about great things that are going on. What's really important, I believe, is that we all come together as this meeting pulls us together and really begin to chart the course to say, what are we going to do that really puts a dent in this? And even more so. And it's not, so let me just not go there. Let me just say this. As you know, as a pastor and as anybody who stands to try to give the final words over the life of somebody, it's not an easy task. There's a lot of emotions going on and all that stuff, and you're just trying to literally, the big thing for me is to be authentic. I'm not trying to make anybody like me. I couldn't care less if you do or you don't. What I do care about is that we care about each other well. And authenticity is really big to me. And there's a wonderful young man named Jabri who got up and spoke. And quite frankly, Jabri spoke beautifully as a 20-year-old, I think 20 or not 20, 25, I'm not sure quite how old. As far as I was concerned, Jabri had actually preached the sermon. For those of you who were there, he had done a beautiful job saying how he wished he had taken more responsibility for LaRae, had pulled LaRae out. He knew what LaRae was in, but he wished that he had pulled LaRae out because what he was in was not cool. Those were his words. And quite frankly, it was really great. And as a pastor, there are times when I have literally followed the Spirit and said, enough has already been said. But at that moment, what I realized is that Jabri spoke for a generation that was extremely important for him to say what he said. But it was very important that I speak for the other generation, the generation of us old folks who really need to be able to say to young people, there are some things that we have done that I want to take responsibility for too. Number one, I said, I want to learn more and understand more because I'm a product of foster care. I didn't live in a home with a mom and a dad and grow up with a wonderful background and scene and stuff like that. I grew up in 2 foster homes and 2 orphan homes. And there are a lot of ugly things that can happen to you when you grow up that way. And quite frankly, they do scar you in some ways for life. They do indeed, but we still have choices. I wanted to say and did say to them that there were people who tried to be impediments to my willingness, my determination to go on and become educated as to go to earn my bachelor's, to earn my master's, and to be in the middle of an earned doctoral program. There are people that will always stand in your way. But at the end of the day, we've got the choice, and it's important. The second one was an acknowledgement of our failure. Our failure as church leaders, our failure as black men, our failures as citizens of the community who, no matter what we do, we can do more and we can do better.